Hi friends, I'm Aria Diana. Welcome to another episode of our book club video series, Composting Competition and Moving Toward Compersion. My metamour and fellow relationship coach Salina and I are exploring Marie Thouin's book, What is Compersion, chapter by chapter. This week we are discussing chapter 3 titled Gratitude. I've just returned from a very cute weekend retreat with my polycule in the mountains of Northern California, and I'm feeling so much gratitude for this season of really feeling a sweet web of support around me in a kitchen table polyamory dynamic that I've come to absolutely adore. Today I'm going to kick things off with a little meditative practice related to webs, but let's get Salina in here first. Welcome, Salina.
Hello.
I thought we could start with a little gratitude meditation as we get into chapter 3. How does that sound?
Lovely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, so let's just begin by finding a comfortable seat, gently closing your eyes, taking a couple long, slow inhales through the nose, filling all the way up, and a couple nice big open mouth sighs. Just letting go of the day, feeling your lungs expand, letting go of any tension in your body. And as we arrive here in this space, I want to invite you to begin to envision the web of relationships in your life. All of the people who support you, enrich you, nourish you. Some of those people may be partners, metamours, friends, family, ancestors, community. Just visualize each of these connections like a strand of delicate glowing threads. Just allow yourself to be held by that visualization of an interconnected web of support, connection, this unique tapestry of all of the relationships that are holding you in this moment. Just take a couple breaths here, feeling the chair supporting you, feeling this web of connection, each person contributing to the sense of belonging. Just allow your whole body to settle into that sense of being totally held in the wholeness that is you. And as you feel all of these connections around you, I want to just invite you to bring to mind some gratitude for this love and care and abundance, and allowing this feeling of gratitude to ripple from your heart like a wave of warmth, maybe giving it a color, just allowing that sense of gratitude to expand with each inhale. Allowing your shoulders to soften, your belly to soften, feeling that gratitude expand up your chest and your back, softening your jaw, while it simultaneously moves down into your hips. Let's take a couple more breaths here, just expanding that feeling of gratitude outward. Sending some warmth and love and connection from your body out into the web. Inviting in some softness. As you breathe in here, just bringing a little more awareness to how this practice of gratitude helps us train our brains to look for the positives in our life. Moving away from mindsets of fear and scarcity. With each breath of gratitude, just gently rewiring the brain, reminding it to notice the joy, the love, the rich, abundant web of community and connection and care that really is all around us. Let's take just a couple more breaths, savoring this feeling. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes, carrying the sense of gratitude and positivity into our conversation.
Thank you. So nice.
Yeah. Thanks for that practice. Okay, so in chapter 3 of What is Compersion, Marie highlights that gratitude is often felt when receiving a benefit from another person's intentional action. And I'd love to take a moment as we kick off today's conversation to explore this concept of intentionality within non-monogamous ecosystems from a somatic lens. I think as you and I continue to deepen our conversations around trauma-informed polyamory, I'm really struck by how essential it is to create intentional spaces where we can consciously slow down, unravel our old survival patterns, and engage with partners and metamours from a place of more embodied awareness. I think one thing I've been thinking about is both the stories that we inherit from monogamous culture and the trauma that we've lived through in relationships push us towards competition, telling us that we should vie for the same person's affection, scramble for limited resources like love and time and intimacy. And I think the message that I really want to unravel from dominant culture is that there's not enough to go around. At the same time, trauma primes us to be hyper vigilant, always scanning for threats and keeping us in a contracted place. And I think what I love about somatics is that it's a practice that helps us stay resourced, present, and grounded, especially in the face of complex emotional dynamics. So coming back to the heart of today's discussion, gratitude, I just want to express how thankful I am for the shared language and culture that you and I are building around trauma-informed care and somatics and mindfulness and decolonization. And I just feel such a deep values alignment with you on a lot of that stuff. And I think they form the foundation of what feels like a really beautiful community of care and healing that we're both committed to building. And Marie writes that people often express gratitude to one another for being willing to brave the social stigma of mononormativity together, be partners in crime, and do the work to show up fully in consensual non-monogamous relationships.
Mm.
And she writes this gratitude for empowering one another to live in authentic yet countercultural life fueled relationship satisfaction. And when I read that sentence, I really thought about you and your willingness to have this book club conversation publicly with me. And I just was filled with a lot of gratitude and wanted to start today's conversation just by saying thank you. I'm so grateful for the healing journey that we've both been on to be able to do this work together and really model new relationship paradigms that compost competition and center collaboration and curiosity and compersion.
Aw. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really mutual, honey. So
Good to be here
grateful.
with you. Yeah. Okay, so to get into some questions. So Marie writes that gratitude is generated by approaching every relationship with fluidity and a sense of open possibility. And I love that mindset so much. To me, it's like so queer. She writes that several participants expressed a sense of relief and gratitude that the way they wanted to structure their relationships was not only possible, but could translate into positive emotional experiences, despite the stigma associated with consensual non-monogamy. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts about how you personally navigate the tension between societal stigma around non-monogamy and the personal positive emotional experiences it brings to you. Like, despite the external judgment, how have you cultivated a mindset of openness and possibility in your relationships?
Mm. Honestly, like being a queer woman of color and knowing that since like a young age, there's a lot of comfort I have in being different. And I'm really grateful to my parents. One of their strengths was creating a lot of space for my authenticity. So even being one of many children in a working class family that was really busy with a lot of complications and trauma, I feel like I got a lot of positive messaging around there was space for me to explore who I was. My parents really value expression, and they really, even though they didn't always have the skill or the time to like listen to my emotional verbal expression, and having two queer aunties from a really young age gave a lot of like just model and example, and they said verbally a lot, like permission to be who I was.
Mm.
So I think I learned from an early age that I could stand in my unique expression, and I built a tolerance for being different and bold and wild. And even though, I think unethically I explored monogamy from age 14, unskillfully, unethically, as a woman in my late 20s and early 30s, when I really was like, this is something I want to explore, my family and friends witnessing how challenging it was for me. And at that time, being earlier in my trauma healing journey, there being a lot of internal instability and outward anxiety expression and a lot of tumult. And, Justin and I were rookies, so we made like hella rookie mistakes. I'm sure it looked hella messy from the outside. So, there was a lot of like, Salina, like, are you sure this is like, this seems so complicated. Are you okay? Like a lot of doubt. And so for those first, I'd say like 4 years in our early exploration, that was hard. It was hard to be in a state of like wild, courageous exploration and then hear so much uncertainty and doubt externally, like from friends and family, that would really wobble me. And I needed space to process. And at that time, nobody in my life was polyamorous or non-monogamous. Like, so I didn't have any real allies. And when I wanted to like share and get some support, would get a lot of like, I don't think this is good for you. So that was hard. I think though, years later, my family's really grown to be a wonderful support. I feel so grateful for that. I think that Justin and I have always had an orientation in our relationship that growth is at the center, like both as individuals and as a couple. And with that, we understand that like pain isn't bad, that the suffering like isn't bad, but that it's like a opportunity for us to bring love and healing. And actually, like, that's where we understand magic is. So I think at this point, having been out around polyamorous for like 13 plus years in my life, I have a lot of comfort and excitement in doing something that I perceive as very radical and liberating. So like, I think I've throughout my entire life been like, oh, that's taboo. I want to do it. Like I've been drawn towards something that's different. And now having so many years under my belt of having had many harder conversations with loved ones, and they see actually like, damn, Salina, you're doing it. And we see your growth and we understand where you're coming from. We've met some of your partners. Like we're in a really different place. And so sometimes there's still moments like I came out at work a couple years ago, and that was like another layer of coming out. But it's been, even though it was awkward or there was uncertainty, it was still so beautiful. I look at, at the Polycule event, my boss was there and one of my colleagues, and several of my family members. It's like, I think everybody now is really watching with both this. The compersion is like a household word at my workplace and in my home, my family home. And so anyways, we kind of shifted a little bit from the question. I don't know if I answered it from where we started. I went to a couple different places.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. Sometimes I experience like a lot of different external projections versus my internal experience feel very radically different. So yeah, it sounds like as you've come out more over the years and shared with people, maybe it feels more integrated, which is beautiful.
Amen. Yeah. What
Yeah.
about you, love?
I have had multiple coming out conversations to family members over the years. Some of them have been more successful than others. I think there was a recent conversation with some family members who live far away where they really had a hard time understanding why we would want to relate in this way. And the word that they used to describe this way of relating was narcissistic, which I think is completely like the opposite of how I experience non-monogamy. I think it's so much about communal care and widening the scope of how we relate. And yeah, I think I've gotten to a place where I don't need to convince anyone of that my positive experiences are positive for me and my community. It's a hard thing to feel so misunderstood by people who want to love and care for you, but just don't understand or don't have the curiosity or the spaciousness to kind of unlearn mononormativity in the way that I hoped they might.
Girl, I hear you. And not to say it doesn't like still hurt or disappoint me when people don't understand or they, I'd say in my family, there's people who understand more and who are, more supportive, and some who don't understand but are still trying to be supportive. And I still hear comments that they make and it was like, ooh, a little like
Mm-hmm.
cringe or a little hurt or like I'm being missed here. I think that something in my journey in polyamory that feels so at the center, and I think you feel really similarly, is like for me, it's healing. Like my healing is at the center of everything that I'm doing. And I think a skill that I've learned, like one of the reasons why I do sometimes get on a polyamory soapbox a little bit, because I do feel like it can kick your ass, but there's so many skill sets that I've learned. And one of them is learning even more deeply, how do I stand in my authentic expression and allow people, even people who I really love and care about, struggle with a layer of my identity, and for me still to be able to hold like a deep love and respect for myself and the deep knowing in my bones that like this is so right for me and I can witness you struggling. This is like evoking some things for you. It's like that practice of being able to self-love, self-regulate, even in the face of that sometimes judgment and outright like criticism and demeaning, disrespectful comments.
Yeah, good to just let all that roll off and be like, nope, no, thank you. That's not my story. You can have your projections, and I'm gonna, yeah, do my thing over here.
Yeah.
Ah, well, to get back into the gratitude. In this chapter, Marie condenses participants' account of gratitude with non-monogamy into buckets. I'd love to read you the headers and hear which of these things stoke your gratitude and which ones resonate the most. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so Marie's research participants express feeling gratitude for richer emotional and sexual life, a richer social life,
Mm.
authentic emotional expression, freedom from fear, emotional congruence and pride, relief from guilt, personal growth, and enhanced relationship satisfaction. I'm curious if any of these are places where you've experienced gratitude, if there's other things not on this list that you feel grateful for as it pertains to your own journey.
Hmm. I mean, so many. I could speak to examples in each of these categories. And as I said earlier, I think Justin and I fell in love so quickly because we have such a deep passion for personal growth and respect for each other's commitment to our own personal growth. And really, I think, you know, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy and mononormativity can, in my experience, like be like the goal of marriage is to have the thing. It's like to arrive at a place of like, especially as a woman being oriented towards like the goal is to get a husband and then keep a husband.
And live happily ever after. The
Yep.
end. Yeah,
Yep, exactly. It's a
totally.
really different, and to really value like things staying the same.
Mm.
So it's really different, I think, to say we value change, we value growth, we value our own distinct personal growth journeys and the way that's embedded in our marriage. So I think like that's my biggest gratitude, like forever. And that's the thing that I will say, there's been chapters of my polyamorous journey over the last 13 years that have been really painful, like deeply, deeply painful for me. And most of that is like sitting with the abandonment trauma that polyamory has triggered in me. And it's been beautiful because it's really driven me to fierce commitment around healing that abandonment trauma. I've had so many different layers of trauma in my family, like from age 8 all the way to age 28. So many painful experiences with my family. And so for a long time, it felt like I'm never going to heal like this. Like I used to really think I would have to live in an experience of like chronic anxiety and panic attacks. And so it's been very empowering for me to get the support of my husband and like really have this orientation towards healing, which has really created so much more freedom. And I think for me, being a very self-expressed sexual and romantic and erotic being from a young age, I've mentioned this before, like no partner has ever been able to have enough space to allow me to be in my full expression. And it's been such a gift to have a partnership that allows me to be my whole self and really have both the freedom from my own trauma and pain, but then that has allowed so much freedom for more expression. And then what a delight to get to witness Justin being in his whole expression, and for him, his independence and really his freedom is, I think he would say, is really at the center. It's like less like he wants a partner or he wants to experience this kind of sexual thing or needs a girlfriend. It's like really he wants to feel free as like a autonomous human. And it's
Mm-hmm.
been like a really special thing to get to give him the biggest gift that he'd ever want.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can see how that generates a lot of gratitude for you.
Yeah. What's on your heart, darling?
I think the personal growth for sure feels like a really big piece for me as well. I think I really think about polyamory as part of my spiritual practice, and there's been probably nothing that has like invited me to continue healing and growing and really checking myself and learning about the shadowy parts than, yeah, learning to let go of control and embrace change and the unknown and
Oh
be
my God.
willing to get curious about all of the things that we're taught love is supposed to be. And the relationship satisfaction piece definitely resonates as well. There's a lot of satisfaction that comes from just having the freedom to have open possibilities and relationships that feel fluid and they're allowed to take whatever shape they naturally want to evolve into. And that's been one of the most beautiful things, is moving away from this idea that we have platonic connections and then there's the one. Like there's so much more room for diverse ways of connecting with people that don't fall into those rigid binaries. And thinking about the personal growth, I think it's also, yeah, really satisfying to like be in relationship with people who are interested in personal growth. And I see you blossoming and growing and evolving, and I see Sky evolving and growing and Beck's healing and growing. And I think it feels really powerful to be in
Mm.
that web of positive growth and holding space for each other. And I feel like compersion becomes contagious in that way. I see you generous, I feel compersion, the positive cycle continues. And I think it really feels like that, more of like the spiritual positive empathy that Marie talks about, the Buddhist muditas, like feeling that sympathetic joy, which is a really beautiful
Mm.
ecosystem to be immersed in. And then also the richer social life, like yay for polycule retreats and getting time to be with everybody in the mountains and having friends in areas where dominant culture tells us we should be competing feels like such a gift.
Amen. I think that's something I keep bringing up in all of our conversations is like that for me, the spirit of polyamory isn't just about romantic connections, but it's this like real decolonization of this idea that our marriage has to be everything and allowing more space for our individual needs across any lines, whether it's like I think about, especially for many women who didn't have a lot of freedom to like work, and just like being able to have a rich work life, being able to, in my marriage, travel a lot for work, and my husband being really supportive of like me being outside of the home and traveling to like Justin's on a mountain biking trip with his brother today and just feeling like supportive of all the different facets of his life that really add. Something I wanted to tell you about that was a kind of an eye-opening moment for me. Justin and I went to Hawaii on a late honeymoon, which is such a treat. And I've been working so much in the last couple of years, just like hustling, working, 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 working. And also trying to create enough financial abundance for me to have opportunities like travel. So this really was one of the first experiences Justin and I have had in a long, like ever, I think, where we spent like 7 days just with each other. And I got to witness in a different way outside of our everyday life, like his delight. Like we went to the botanical gardens, and he loves gardens. And I love gardens, but I might go for like an hour, you know. We were there for like 4 hours just like walking around in the gardens, and I was really taking in a different way of like, oh, this is so sweet watching and experiencing his delight. Like he loves pastries. We went to multiple different bakeries, and he would get like 6 different pastries and just like have a pastry buffet. And I was like, I am actually really enjoying watching him be in joy. And it was a great experience for me because, especially being on this trip together and spending that much time together, I got then to experience his joy, like for the day. Like the day we went to the botanical gardens was awesome. We actually did the pastries before that, but all day long, he was doing things that he really liked. And I was like experiencing the pleasure of being around someone who was so alive and so lit up by his favorite activities. And I was getting on a deeper level, like, oh, this is such a gift to be around someone this happy.
Mm.
And I think that more and more for me as a driver, compersion for me, especially as a trauma survivor and someone who struggles to be compersive because of my pain, happiness felt so much more accessible to me. Like putting happiness and compersion right next to each other, of like, wow, when Justin is happy and fulfilled, I actually am experiencing in real time how he's pouring that back into me, how I'm experiencing this really happy person, how nice this is. And it also becomes a lot less about dating, which has so much charge and fears and all the thing of just, but really as a value in my marriage of being like, we deeply value each other's happiness. And we understand that when each other is happy, our marriage is happier. And since Hawaii, we've had a big shift in our connection. And part of it has been this just like trying to carry in our busy lives where we're working and doing all the things, this like really centering of each other's happiness.
How beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with me. I didn't realize that Hawaii was a honeymoon trip. That's
It's a
the
late
first time I'd heard
honeymoon.
that word. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was, we got married in COVID times, didn't get to have a honeymoon. We also bought a house, so we didn't have the resource to go on a honeymoon. And it was so nice to be like, yeah, it's our honeymoon. Like we want we want just like we're going just to celebrate our love.
How
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that reflection of just the abundance of pastries, the abundance of flowers, and just like witnessing his delight. What a sweet moment.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thanks
hearing
for sharing that. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, let's keep going. I think, let's see. Okay, so next question. On page 63, in the section on feeling grateful and feeling relief from guilt,
me.
Marie writes that letting go of being everything to one's partner could, in some cases, trigger one's internalized mononormativity and bring up insecurity. However, when enough safety was present, these situations could invoke more gratitude than threat, resulting in compersion. So I thought this was really interesting, and I guess there's kind of a two-part question here. I'm curious, in what ways do you think you're still working through internalized mononormativity
Mm.
that makes it harder to experience compersion? Actually, yeah, I'll just ask that question first, and then maybe we can come back to the second.
This
Yeah,
is
are there,
juicy.
yeah, are there ways that you notice internalized mononormativity still present for you?
Oh, girl. I think the like biggest one that I've really started to identify, and it's been so helpful to like something I really enjoy on the personal growth side, is noticing like these pulling up these stories that I'm like, oh, like I'm operating actually from this story that I got from somewhere that's actually not really true. And I think one of them is this clear like pathway. If Justin likes another person or is interested in another person, he's going to leave me. So it's been a corrective experience to witness and adopt a new belief that Justin can be in connection with other people and that doesn't equate that he's unsatisfied in our marriage and that he's going to leave me. Like that has been, I think, so the anxiety and the terror, especially as a trauma survivor with abandonment issues, it's like that's the thing. It's like every time he goes on a date, he's going to leave me. He doesn't love me. I'm not enough. And so it's been a retraining of like, I am enough. And it's a beautiful thing in our relationship. And I experience this all the time in my own connections, like to explore connections with other people. And I still love my husband and love being married to him. He is enough for me. And like all of these things can be true. Like that's something I'm really, I will be so happy and relieved when that is a belief that's deeply in my system. And I want to name that it also requires a lot of skillfulness. Like, and that's something I feel so grateful for with engaging with you and Justin, is he has a lot of skillfulness, and so do you, which makes the experience so much more healing.
Yeah. Makes it easier to loosen some of those insidious mindsets. Yeah, when you
Absolutely.
can feel the safety. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, well, the second part of this question, which you're alluding to a little bit, but the part around when enough safety was present. And you recently were talking to me about how you think about the idea of like building scaffolding of safety, which is
Mhm.
something I see so many of my clients really needing help doing and understanding what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit about how you think about building the scaffolding that creates safety? And yeah, how have you learned to create safety so that situations today might feel more compersive than threatening?
Oh, amen. As a classroom teacher, especially like dealing with students on the margins and students, young people, like vulnerable people with a lot more trauma, I feel like I have gotten it's been a deep value of mine to create spaces where my most marginalized can thrive and they can heal. And I think that so much of trauma informed practice for me is creating containers of safety where young people can take risks. And in teaching, we use the word scaffolding a lot. So it's like a term to describe how you might support a student that, yeah, needs a little extra support to experience success. And for a student who's like repeatedly experiencing failure at something, it like adds to a mindset, especially as probably a BIPOC marginalized trauma survivor child, that like, I can't do this, or I'm never going to be able to do that. Like there's so much messaging around what they're capable of. So as an educator, it's been really important to be like, how do I give them this experience of success? And what's my job to set up a container of success for them? Because once they feel enough success with this, we can take away the scaffold, and actually they now know, oh yeah, I can do this, I am capable of this, and it's good actually to receive the support. So I know for myself as a trauma survivor that consistency and predictability are really important to me. As a child and as a young person and as a young adult in my family with so many traumatic surprises where like things were okay, things are well, and then the rug was pulled out from under me, and there's some secret that I didn't know, or some major harm that had been caused, or two family members who aren't speaking to each other. Like there were uh, so many examples of really painful surprise. The predictability is very important to cause safety. And I know my anxiety often gets worse at night. And I feel like often in the daytime, like I can use my tools, I can go out with a friend, I try very hard when Justin's on dates to do things that are fulfilling for me, like create my dream. Like last Friday when you guys were on a date, I, went to the gym, and then I took myself out to one of my favorite dinners, and I went home and like did some witchy, like I know how to create a rich experience for myself, but I also know that once dark comes, it's so much easier for my anxiety for me to struggle, especially late at night when like friends may not be available, like 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I can get really overwhelmed, and consistently between like 9 and 10, that's like the break, like for me. somatically. I'm just like, okay, now I've like entered panic attack mode and I don't know how to come down. Also through experience, Justin and I have learned that transitions back from dates are hard. I'm like in a protective trauma response state. I want to receive support and closeness from him, but I'm so closed down. And in my trauma response, I often do a push-pull. So I want support, but then I'll be really mean and push him away. And that's really hard to do like at 11:30 at night or 12:30 at night. It's just like I'm tired, I'm under-resourced, then I like don't sleep, and then I get into a cycle of anxiety and a trauma response that can last for days, and it's just like so exhausting. So a scaffold that Justin and I have put in that feels vulnerable to ask for, because I want to be mindful of especially Justin wanting to experience his freedom. Like that's like one of his biggest goals in this. Like, so to have a parameter is hard for him. And I'm really grateful to him and to you for your willingness when I've like asked for those things. So when he came home by 10, it was actually last Friday was one of the best transitions we ever had back from a date. And I was so grateful because that data of like, we have good transitions. I had some anxiety, but I could manage it. And then Justin came and held my hand. And for a half hour of like doing somatic practice together, I was able to come down, and it was really beautiful. It creates a corrective experience with that support. So that's one example of ways that we've used scaffolds that really help create then the date becomes a healing experience for me, actually, instead of just a traumatic trigger.
Thank you for sharing that. I hear that that's vulnerable, and yeah, really appreciate you sharing so openly about your experience. And yeah, I think for me, it's like so helpful to know, like, all right, these are the systems that help you feel safe, and so much easier to help meet your needs when I clearly know what they are. So thank you for like knowing your boundaries and being like, okay, nighttime is hard. Maybe we don't hang out late. Yeah, I think for me, I often think about it more in the term of like the Jessica Fern vessel, where it's like, okay, here's the container, here are the edges of things. But I really like the idea of scaffolding too, and creating safety that way. Like when you were talking about your students, I thought the thing that came to mind was like the idea of like a tricycle. Like we're going to put on some like extra
Yeah.
wheels and give them some extra support so that they can ride on their own. And I think, yeah, really like creating baby steps into non-monogamy polyamory is such a helpful thing. And I think so many people just like dive straight in the
Well,
deep end. And it's like, all right, you're going on a date with someone else. You went and had sex with someone else. And then it's just like all of the harm and the repercussions. And yeah, I think the more that people can slow down and check in with themselves and really know their needs and boundaries and be able to ask for them and then get that reassurance and somatic support, like, sounds like you guys are doing a lot of things right. And I'm sure it's taken a long time to get here. And I
yeah.
appreciate you sharing your wisdom.
Thanks, honey. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And I think so much of that is a slower pace, like you named. And it's hard because I know even for myself, I'm so intense and like can have when I know I want something, move at a speed. And it's like that speed doesn't always give time to actually integrate and process and learn. And so it does, I think in my maturity at like 43, I'm very different at 33 when we just like dove head first and then created so many complex dynamics that we didn't actually have the skill set to meet. So
Yeah.
I know it's harder to move at a slower pace because we're excited. And I feel like it's really benefited creating healing experiences so that we can take the scaffolds away sometime soon to have more freedom.
Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom in that pacing and slowing things down. And when we let the excited, rushy parts of us lead, that's when things can cause harm. And then we need more, yeah, more work to repair. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for all of those learnings and clear requests and boundaries and agreements. And yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I'm
lots
curious
of
if you want to share anything around those questions about your experience.
composting mononormativity definitely resonates. I think there are still parts of me that continue
Mm,
to notice the way that monogamous thinking can be challenging in terms of when I think about Sky's connection with Bex and the new levels of partnership that they're moving into. I think the default reaction when I'm under resourced is to interpret her as a threat. And I'm really cognizant that like she's a good thing for Sky. She's a good thing for me. There's benefits here. It's great to have another person and support team husband. And I think it's like a conscious practice of bringing to mind gratitude for her and for the
Mm.
relationship ecosystem. And yeah, it's an ongoing practice. I think, you know, spending, I don't know, 30 years of my life really immersed in monogamous culture, like this stuff doesn't get composted and unlearned overnight. And I feel like it's an ongoing practice of noticing, like, oh, yeah, that's monogamy. That's toxic monogamy. That's teaching me to be afraid and to control and to hoard love. And one metaphor that I've been thinking about, I mean, we talked about this before, like I think so much of monogamous culture teaches us to think about love like a pie where we're dividing it up and there's limited resources. And I've really been trying to meditate on this idea of like love as the sun, where all of the
Oh.
flowers in the garden can be nourished and grow equally. And it's not, yeah, it's an infinite resource that expands and can nourish all of us. So yeah, I've been meditating on this idea of like healthy love is the sun and moving away from this like division and limited lack mentality that I think is so often perpetuated in monogamous culture. And I, yeah, really want to be done with
Mm, I love that. That's a beautiful metaphor.
that. Metaphor for the metamour. Yeah, well, I know we're just about at time and want to be respectful of time boundaries. Should we move to a little close? I was thinking we could do, yeah, a couple closing breaths and actually the meditation practice this guy and I do every morning is we sit and meditate and then we share three things that we're grateful for, taking turns going back and forth. I was wondering if
Cute.
maybe you'd be open to doing a little gratitude practice with
So
me.
cute. Sure.
Okay, well, yeah, let's just take a second to close our eyes, close out this container. Let's just take three long, slow inhales through the nose and a nice big exhale. Bringing to mind that feeling of gratitude in our bones and our bodies. Thanks for taking those breaths with me. And as we move to close, yeah, is there anything that feels present in your relationship ecosystem that you want to just express gratitude for?
So many things. I, yeah, I mean, to be clear, I could be on the Aria gratitude train all day because it's a lot, it's a long list, but
Hmm.
I'm really grateful for like what a special, precious connection we have. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, wow, you came into my life right, like we met right at the time when my relationship with Anthony was closing, which was a really painful experience for me. And it's been interesting because on one hand, I might think like, oh, it's hard to be in this place where Justin's deepening with someone and I'm don't have anybody, but it's like just been such the opposite of that for me. It's really been this experience of so much growth and love and safety and like reprogramming and healing. You've invited me to participate in so many things. You've uh, held a lot of space to listen with curiosity to my experience, and you've had a lot of willingness to make polyamory be a healing experience for me. And it's just been such a goddamn delight.
Aw. Well, thank you. I feel so much gratitude for you as well. And so much gratitude in this moment too for the opportunity for me and you and Justin to like sit down and have some meals together recently and really just
Oh.
share space. And yeah, I love that we're moving into more of a kitchen table poly structure between the three of us. And yeah, I mean, you guys have such a good kitchen table in the mountains and one of my favorite parts of Northern California. So grateful for you sharing that with me and sharing your food and cooking for me and being so open and generous.
Aw, so fun.
Yeah. Do you have, so Sky and I always share three things we're grateful for. Do you have two more? We'll go back and forth and we'll close it
So,
out.
so many, sure. Hmm. Yeah, I'm really grateful for the space you've created to be in dialogue. And I feel like we all hung out this weekend, you, me, and Justin had reached his limit for like verbal processing, like an hour in. But bless him, he kept going for, 2 hours while we were all talking. And then you and I like verbal processed for like 2 more hours together. And am so grateful because it is very productive for me to verbally process around polyamory. And I don't have a lot of people in my life who really meet me and experience. So it's been so nourishing to get to just be in dialogue with you in this way. It's very special and unique to me.
Yay. I feel the same. I'm grateful we get to have dinner on Sunday. Yeah, more tables to share food.
One more. I'm really grateful to the like model that you've been for me. And I really admire, I'm so grateful for all the like vulnerable sharing that you've done, which not everyone is willing to do around very tender parts. And I've learned so much, and see you navigating really tender things like with such grace, like deep intuition, deep listening. And it's inspiring. It's really inspiring for me to see how you move through your life, period.
Hmm. Thank you. I feel so seen. Well, I'll just close with, I guess, some gratitude for Justin for bringing us together and, yeah, being such a sweet hinge partner and creating spaciousness for us all to be
Oh,
together and integrate and connect. And, yeah, really
yeah.
grateful for both of you.
Aw, love that.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for chapter 3. I look forward to chapter 4 with you very soon.
Sounds good, darling.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of this book club video series. It's so fun to be here working on composting competition and moving toward compersion with Salina. I want to invite you to subscribe to my weekly newsletter if you haven't already at ariadiana.substack.com, where you will receive emails when more episodes of this book club series drops. We've got another 10 to go. I send out weekly tips and advice for people practicing non-monogamy. Did you see the article associated with chapter 2 of this book club series? We shared 20 original tips to cultivate compersion in emotional, cognitive, attitudinal, and behavioral ways, which you can find only on Substack. So come join us there, join the subscriber only chat, and share your own reflections and meet others on this journey of moving towards compersion. Thanks for being here.